Hello guys, welcome to this Brawl Stars video. And as you can tell by the title, this video is basically a tier list on my thoughts on how all the characters rank compared to each other. And I also have their ranking based on my thoughts on how they rank on each individual game mode, like Brawl Ball, Showdown, Bounty, and everything like that. Before I start, I just want to say that this took me a long time to make and to edit, so if you guys enjoyed the video, just leave a like and comment, because that really helps out the video on getting up there on the search rankings. And also, these are all my opinion, so of course you can have a different opinion than me, but I've played the game a lot, so I usually know what I'm talking about. How it's gonna work is the S tier are basically the overpowered characters, while D tier is basically the worst characters, with the A, B, and C tiers being in the middle. And I'm gonna start from the worst up to the best. So our first brawler, which I consider the current worst brawler, is Pam. The reason why I don't think Pam is that useful and that great in the current game is because she's basically a little bit above average in smash and grab, but in every other game mode she's basically useless. You can't use her in other game modes unless you want to put your team in a disadvantage and have your other teammates carry you. You can only basically use her in open maps in smash and grab, where you know that they're gonna have to come towards you in the middle. And a mechanical problem with Pam is that once you shoot, you stay shooting for like a second and a half. So let's say you know you missed your ammo, like let's say there's somebody at short range and you're trying to shoot them and you missed. Basically you're just gonna be stuck in your shooting animation for that second and a half, while if somebody else has a better character that can just keep shooting, then you're just gonna be screwed. And in this current meta of Barley and Dynamikes, basically your turret, your healing station is gonna be taken out very easily. Our next brawler to conclude the D tier is Bo. Now, before we continue, I'm just going to say that one of the most important factors in determining if a character is overpowered or underpowered is basically their mechanics. Things like how long their shooting animation lasts, how long it takes their bullets to reach the target, and like the bullet spread, like how far apart their bullets spread out, and like basically things like that. With Bo, there's basically one huge mechanical problem that basically makes him more underpowered than he should be, and that's his mines. Basically, when you drop his mines, it shows exactly where they're at for the enemy. And people at higher levels, like 300 plus trophies, they're not stupid. If they see that you drop the mine right there, they're gonna try and pop those mines very easily without taking any damage. And his primary role in the game is probably to be an area control guy, because basically his arrows are explosive and they don't do too much damage. But in my opinion, there's just a lot more characters that provide better area control, like Crowell, Barley, Dynamike, even Bronk. So I don't think Bo's that useful, and he's usually only useful. Moving on up to the C tier, the first brawler we have up is Anita. Now, just to get one thing straight, Anita as a character is fine. The problem that I have with her is her super, and that they nerfed it basically to the ground. The problem right now is that the bear, in order to get it, you have to get 7 to 8 hits to actually just charge up the bear. So usually you're probably only gonna get 1 or 2 bears per game. And if they just have one damage dealer, just one, your bear's basically useless, because they're just gonna kill it in like 1 second, and you're not gonna get that much out of it, and it's usually gonna get like 1 or 0 hits, so you're gonna have to get another 7 hits to get another bear. And even if your bear does manage to trap them, they can just walk right through the bear and only take 3 hits, and they're gonna be fine and only take a little bit of damage anyway. The thing is, most people at higher levels are smarter, and they usually know how to avoid the bear and take it out very easily. What I would actually do to the bear to try and fix it is, one, try and give it a higher movement speed, and 2, make it be able to hit while it's moving. So like, you know that if they get out of range, the bear still stays still for like a few seconds without doing anything. So the bear should actually be able to move and attack at the same time. And an idea that I thought about is maybe in the main menu you could choose between having the current bear or a bear that basically guards a specific radius, so that in smash and grab, for example, you can choose so that the bear doesn't just wander off into their spawn and go into their trap and easily get killed. Just a thought. Next up on the C tier is gonna be Ricochet. Now, some of you might be thinking, why is Ricochet that down low on the list? He has a good amount of health and he does a lot of damage. Now, like I said before, what defines a character is basically their mechanics. Basically, one of the big problems with Ricochet mechanically is his bullet spread. Basically, if you're trying to shoot somebody at long range, you're lucky if you hit 2 bullets, because usually you're only going to hit 1 bullet, because that bullet spread, the further it goes, the more the bullets are going to spread. Another one of his mechanical problems is basically, if you shot and you know you missed, you have to sit there and wait for like a second until the animation finishes. So you're basically put at a disadvantage to other characters that can basically shoot again really quickly, while you have to wait for that 1 second animation to end while you know you already missed your attack. So what I would suggest Supercell doing is basically just reducing his bullet spread by a lot, because basically right now if you try and use him as a long range damage dealer, you're not going to have that much luck. Next up on the list is going to be Spike. Now, the reason why I have Spike down in the C tier is basically because he's a medium range character who only has 600 health. Because basically, usually to get a good amount of damage with Spike, you need to get close to your enemies. And since he only has 600 health, that's usually not very easy to do. The only maps that I see him useful in are the ones basically where there's bushes on the edges like this and you can catch your opponents off guard. Also, his other useful attribute is basically to just trap people in his super and then throw all your ammo at them. But then if you try and use it at the edge of its range, you're usually not going to hit people. So usually you need to just try and hit people from short to medium range to make it effective. Last up on the C tier is Jessie. Jessie is actually the perfect example, the absolute perfect example of how mechanics can basically make or break a character. If anybody remembers, back about a month ago, Supercell basically made Jessie's turret shoot at 0.25 seconds per bullet, and basically made the turret's bullet impossible to dodge. Everybody was calling it a machine gun, and it was extremely overpowered, and everybody was saying that Jessie was in the S tier. Now, basically, they reduced the time from 0.25 seconds to 0.3 seconds per bullet. Now, most people think she's underpowered because people can easily dodge her bullet. That's how much a 0.05 second change makes. Right now, if you know how to use her right, she's a very good brawler at area control in Smash and Grab, but in every other game mode except Smash and Grab, she's not very useful, and she's usually just a dead weight towards your team. Somebody here could make the argument that she's okay at Brawl Ball, but the problem with that is her aim is very small and hard to hit, so usually you don't do a lot of damage, so you're not going to be able to stop very well the Bulls and Primos unless you have your turret. So before you have it, they can easily score on you and you're usually going to be at a disadvantage. Now, moving up to the B tier, where brawlers may or may not need a buff, first we have Piper. The weird thing about Piper is for like the longest time in July and the beginning of August, she was overpowered because basically all the other long range characters had lower health, and she did a ton of damage, a max of 575, and sometimes she could one-shot Rico. And of course, right now, she's the best brawler to use in Bounty. Basically, in like almost every single Bounty map, except probably the Snake Prairie map, she's useful in it. And in most maps, she's the best you can use. But the reason why I have her this low on the list is in almost every other game mode, she's basically useless. Like, you can't use her in Heist, in Showdown, and in Brawl Ball, she's arguably the worst character to pick. My theory is that Piper's gonna be good in any team game mode where all that gets involved is just kills, and that's the objective of the game. Basically, because if Piper has to get close to an objective, if she gets close to the enemy brawler, she's not gonna do that much damage, and with that 3-second load time, if you run out of bullets, you're basically out of luck if you're near the objective and an enemy is near you. Now, this next section for the list, where I have it bolded in red, you could basically make the argument for any brawler that they could move around anywhere on this area of the list. But up next on the B tier, we have Bull. Now, you might be seeing towards the right that I have Bull ranked really high on many game modes. But the thing is, with Bull, he's only great on certain maps. Like, he's not universally good on those game modes. Like, let's say for Brawl Ball, he's only good at Backyard Bull. Basically where you can use your super to basically remove that entire row of boxes and leave a wide open mark towards their goal. And in Showdown, he's only great in Feast or Famine, because he can just hide in the middle and take all the boxes and basically be an assassin for whoever comes in. He basically kills them off. And for Bounty, he's great for both Snake Prairie and Outlaw Camp, where there's basically a lot of bushes and you can hide basically around the map or in the middle of the map, and if people come in, you can basically just assassinate them very easily. But there's also many maps that he's not very good in, basically the ones that don't have that many bushes to hide in and to lure your opponents to go in so you can get right there at close range. Next up on the list is gonna be Poco. Now, I could honestly say that Poco is probably the second best character in Smash and Grab behind Crowell. That's because he just provides an amazing area of the Nile towards the middle. Basically, any map in Smash and Grab that's closed off and the enemy has to come towards the middle, Poco can just easily poke the enemy and prevent them from going into the middle with full health. And he also just scares them away because he knows that, and his heal only takes 5 hits to charge up, while also being extremely clutch when basically all of your teammates are controlling the middle, but then now you're all at low health, so you can just heal everybody up and continue to control the middle. He's also decent in Brawl Ball, where the large area of attack can basically make teams not be able to stick way too much together. Last but not least, on the B tier, we have Mortis. Now, this brawler might be the most controversial in the game right now, because there's probably a lot of people that think he's underpowered, and there might be some people that think he's overpowered. Now, personally, I think he's both. Basically, right now, he's overpowered in Brawl Ball, because with Mortis, if you know what you're doing, you can easily just dribble across all of the enemies and just pass right through them and score an easy goal. But in almost every other game mode, he's basically just average or below average, because like in Smash and Grab, where it basically used to be his specialty, now it feels like if you play Mortis in Smash and Grab, your team is basically on a 2v3, because Mortis is too weak to go out and try and kill the other players. And if your team's going to be stuck on a 2v3, the other team's usually going to control the middle, which isn't going to allow Mortis to go towards the middle and get the gems. And usually if you do, you're probably going to die, because they're all going to concentrate their firepower on you. So basically what I think is Supercell's in the dilemma. If they buff Mortis, they're going to make him even more overpowered in Brawl Ball. But if they don't, he's going to be super weak in every other game mode. Now on to the A tier. This here is probably the one that I had the hardest time placing them in a specific order. Because basically they're all great in their own fashion. But first up, we have Brock. If we all remember the Brock from the past, he was probably one of the worst, if not the worst brawler in the game. But of course, they changed his mechanics and basically made his rockets fly faster. And also give him 9 rockets instead of 6 for his super. Which everybody agrees that basically made his super overpowered. But now, his attack is also very good, and basically, unlike Piper, he's also very useful in other game modes because with his regular attack, even if you hit people at a short range, it still does the same amount of damage. And his super is amazing for area control in games like Smash and Grab and Brawl Ball. Personally, for Brock, what I would do is probably make his health go down to 600 because I don't think that long-range damage dealers should have the same health as somebody like Jessie, who's basically short range and doesn't do like almost any damage. Next up on the A tier, we have Shelley. Of course, Shelley. Remember when she was basically the most overpowered character in the game? And now she's basically above average, and she's still very useful as a jack of all trades character that you can basically use in a lot of scenarios. But the 2 game modes that I would play a lot for her and try and level her up is either Bounty or Brawl Ball. Basically, she's a great character at control in Brawl Ball for basically stopping a Mortis when they're charging. When you have your super up, you can just hit the Mortis with the super and it will make him drop the ball. Well, also in maps like Bounty, where there's a lot of bushes and you can just sneak around the map, you can easily just use your super and your regular attacks to just destroy people instantly. Basically, her playstyle is much like Bull's playstyle, but with her super, you just get up close to somebody and hit them with it, and you can basically just destroy them while loading up your super all over again from all that damage. Up next on the A tier, we have Terra. Terra right now is probably one of my favorite characters to play both in teams and by myself when I'm just playing alone. She's basically the definition of what a medium range character should be. Basically have 800 health or so, while also having a useful super. Her super though is what makes her an amazing character. If the game goes global and they have esports for it like they have with Clash Royale, I think that Terra's probably going to be the most used character because of her potential with team coordination. Like basically, imagine like I use my super and I coordinate with my team who has a Brock to basically when I throw it, the Brock uses his super on my super. Basically, it's just a devastating combination if you use her with Barley or Bronk. But also, her super is amazing when you also play her by yourself. Basically, what you just do is you just throw the super close to you, you go where you threw it with 3 of your ammo, and you just shoot all 3 of your ammo up close. Basically, anybody that got trapped in the tornado is gonna take damage from it, and you're gonna basically load up another super and probably kill 1 or 2 people that got stuck in the vortex. Next up on the A tier is gonna be El Primo. Now, putting El Primo up this high could be questionable, but there's a reason why I put him up this high. Basically, right now, I kind of think that he's the best tank to use instead of Bull, basically because he has more versatility than Bull. Especially for his super, especially in Brawl Ball, where you can basically use his super as a trick play. Basically, you kick the ball towards their goal, and then you basically jump to where the ball landed, and basically just kick towards the goal, and almost always there's nothing they can do about it unless they kick the ball away from you. And that's why I think he's the second best character to use in Brawl Ball behind Mortis, because he's useful in almost every single map, just because you can direct where you want to jump at, unlike Bull, where there's always a set amount of distance that you have to travel before you stop. He's also a great character in Smash and Grab now as a gem carrier if you know how to dodge bullets and just move to the left and right, because of his health and his ability to just jump away back to the base with all the gems when you're in trouble. To finish off the A tier, at the top we have Colt. Now the reason why I have Colt this high up on the list is because there's a lot of factors involved. Basically, one, he's a long-range damage dealer who has 700 health, which is just a ton for a character that can output this much damage. Secondly, unlike Ricochet, his bullets just fly in almost a straight line. So basically, if you have good aim, you can do a lot of damage even at long range. And if somebody does come close to you, basically you can just hit all 6 bullets very easily and do about 480 to 600 damage depending on your upgrades, and that's just per clip. Not to mention that his ammo regenerates every second after you shoot, which is just ridiculous. The one thing that doesn't make him go up to the S tier is basically his one mechanic where he still takes like about 0.5 seconds so basically for his ammo to shoot out of his bullets. So if you do miss your enemies at long range, you basically have to wait half a second for you to be able to shoot again. And that's the only thing I see hampering his performance. He's basically great at heist, great at bounty, and also very useful at both bounty and Brawl Ball. Now that we finished the A tier, basically just to remind you, all of the characters that I circled in red, you could probably make an argument that they could move around a little bit, but that's just my opinion of where they should be at. But now on to the S tier. This is basically the tier that's the overpowered characters, and it's the ones that you hear people complaining most about. First off, we have Dynamike. I think most people that play the game right now can agree that Dynamike is extremely strong right now. Basically overpowered. And yeah, it's basically true. In my opinion, there's basically 2 things that I think that make Dynamike extremely overpowered. Basically, number 1 is that his super reloads way too fast. Basically, when you hit your super, you already get 70% back to another super. So you can like recharge it in basically another hit, which is just insane, and you usually get like around 5 supers per match if you know how to hit your supers well. Secondly, it's that he has 700 health. He's a damage dealer that can shoot over walls, and he has the same health as somebody like Jessie. And the reasoning that Supercell had to buff Dynamike makes no sense. Basically, if you look at the patch notes, they basically said, oh, it was because Dynamike had a lower usage rate than Barley, who was like probably the best brawler at the time. Just because Dynamike wasn't used as much, they buffed him to 700 HP from 600. Basically what I think needs to happen is for him to go down to 600 health and for his super to charge up a little bit slower. He'll probably be balanced. Next up on the S overpowered tier is Crowell. Now, I don't have Crowell myself, so in the background I'm just going to have a friend playing Crowell. Basically what makes Crowell so overpowered is his one mechanic, his poison. Basically, his poison makes almost all other area control brawlers useless, because Crowell's poison basically makes people have to hide for about 10 seconds in order to regenerate. And it's really, all he has to do is basically just tag people every 10 seconds to prevent them from regenerating, and it'll basically make them hide for a long time, so your team can easily just get to the objective and complete it. Let's take Smash and Grab for example. Basically, if your team's controlling the middle with Crowell, like it's very difficult for the enemy team to come and control, because if they don't take control in like the first 3 seconds after being poisoned, your team's basically going to have the health advantage if you're able to regenerate. They're not. So he's basically extremely useful in preventing the team from capturing the objective. And last but not least, of course, we have the most overpowered character in the game right now, Barley. Of course, Barley was going to be at the top of the list. Everybody complains that he's basically good at literally everything in every map, and he is. You can use him in almost every single map except the ones that are like in bounty, extremely long range, and are the best for Piper. Basically, for me, there's 2 or 3 mechanics that make Barley very overpowered and work very well. Basically, one, it's his super. His super does an insane amount of damage for like the amount of bottles, and it stays on the ground for 5 seconds. Basically, extremely good at area control, since you can prevent somebody from going to an area of the map for like 5 seconds. Well, it also, the problem with this super is that not only does it control the map, it also does an insane amount of damage while controlling the map. And it charges up super fast. Usually a Barley is probably going to get like 5 to 7 supers per match, because this super, since it's so hard to miss, if you use it, you're probably going to charge up like half of your super. So what I think they should do is probably make a super do a little bit less damage, since like his main purpose is to do area control while making it take a little bit more hits for it to charge. Because right now you can just like cycle through your supers really easy. Alright guys, thank you for watching. Like I said before, these are just my personal opinions, but I do play this game a lot and at the 300 plus trophy range for each brawler. So I usually go against people that are like in the higher skill levels, so this is what I think the tier list at the higher skill level is. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and comment and subscribe. This video took me a long time to edit and make, and it took a lot of effort. So I would really appreciate it if you guys just did that. And as always, peace.